Welcome to my channel, Veterans Legacy. The screen fades in from black, the sound of soft military drums beating beneath a sweeping orchestral score. The camera glides across a quiet American town at sunrise, streets still damp from early morning dew, the sky painted with gold and amber as the day begins. And then the voiceover starts, steady, deep, and resonant. It was a chilly fall morning in Cedar Ridge, a small town where people knew each other by name, waved at strangers, and saluted their flag with genuine pride. The kind of town that aged with the stories of its veterans, stories whispered over coffee, passed between generations, etched into plaques on courthouse walls. But there was one story no one knew. One story everyone assumed had been lost to time. It belonged to a quiet, silver-haired veteran named Tom Keller. Tom had lived in Cedar Ridge for nearly 20 years. He walked with a slight limp, carried himself with a careful dignity, and drove a decades-old pickup with peeling paint and a Marine Corps sticker on the rear window. Every morning he followed the same ritual: arrive at Rosie's Diner at exactly 6 a.m., sit in booth number 3, order black coffee and a single side of toast, and read his newspaper without bothering anyone. He was polite, soft-spoken, private, but what made Tom stand out most wasn't what he said, it was the feeling people had around him. Even in silence, he carried an aura. Old strength, old wounds, a presence that said this man has seen things. Yet no one knew his story. Not truly, and he never offered it. The day everything changed. On this particular morning, the diner buzzed with an unusual energy. The bell above the entrance chimed repeatedly as people entered wearing crisp dress blues and freshly shined boots. The Marines were in town. The 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines had been invited to participate in the Cedar Ridge Veterans Appreciation Week. Many active duty service members had driven out from Pendleton to spend time with the town's aging warriors. At 6:05 a.m., the diner doors swung open again. In walked U.S. Marine Captain Jackson Hale. Tall, square-jawed, confident, the sort of officer who carried the electric spark of youth. He had been told by his Marines that Rosie's Diner had the best breakfast in the county, and he wasn't about to pass up the chance. He stepped inside, brushing off the cold and scanning the room with the professional alertness drilled into him through years of training. That's when he noticed Tom. Sitting alone, quiet, calm. Something about the old man drew Hale's attention. Maybe it was the posture, upright even at his age. Maybe it was the eyes, steel blue and watchful. Or maybe it was simply instinct. Marines had a way of recognizing their own. Hale walked toward the counter but slowed as he passed Tom's booth. At that moment, Rosie, an energetic woman in her 60s, whispered near the register, "That's Mr. Keller. Comes here every day. Served back in the 70s, I think." Someone else chimed in, "He don't talk much. Never shares stories. Shy old fella, Captain." Hale nodded politely and approached the coffee station, but then one of his younger Marines, Lance Corporal Denver, whispered with a smirk, "Hey, Captain, go ask the old guy his call sign. Bet it was something like popcorn, or Gramps." The group chuckled. Hale rolled his eyes. "Cut it out." But Denver teased again, "Come on, sir, could be fun." Hale wasn't cruel, and he respected elders deeply, but he also knew the Marine Corps loved a harmless joke. So he turned toward Tom, walking slowly and respectfully. He didn't know that this would be the moment everything would change. He didn't know whose past he was about to knock on. He didn't know that this quiet, almost invisible veteran sitting alone at 6 a.m. carried a name that once made entire enemy units fall silent. The call sign. "Morning, sir, Captain," Hale said politely. Tom looked up, nodding slightly. "Mind if I ask what unit you served with?" "3rd Recon," Tom replied without emotion. Hale raised an eyebrow. "Recon? Huh, no kidding. Recon Marines were no joke. The best of the best." Encouraged, Hale continued the lighthearted question the others had joked about. "So, what was your call sign?" At the counter, Denver and the other young Marines snickered softly, listening for the answer. Tom folded his newspaper neatly, placed it on the table, and stared at Hale, not annoyed, not offended, just remembering. He said a single name, calmly, softly, as if it were nothing. "Iron Viper." The diner went silent. Captain Hale's jaw tightened. Denver stopped laughing. The whispered conversations froze mid-sentence. Because that call sign was not a joke. Iron Viper was a legend. A ghost story told in training. A myth whispered among Special Operations Marines. A name associated with impossible missions, classified operations, and acts of courage that seemed almost unreal. The Iron Viper wasn't supposed to be a real person. He was a rumor. A recon Marine who had done things no single man could ever do. A man whose missions were still redacted to this day. A man who vanished from the Corps decades ago. A man believed to have been killed in action, or perhaps existed only as a story. And yet, here he was. Drinking coffee. Alone. In Cedar Ridge. Captain Hale swallowed hard, trying to speak. Sir, you were Iron Viper. Tom didn't smile, didn't brag, didn't even blink. That's what they called me, he answered quietly. Recognition. Hale lowered himself into the opposite side of the booth without asking permission. His legs simply gave out from shock. I've read about you, he stammered. Well, read what little wasn't blacked out. Tom's eyes returned to the window. The past is the past, son. But Hale wasn't letting this go. He turned toward his Marines at the counter. You three, on your feet. They scrambled over instantly. Captain, Denver asked nervously. You will stand at attention, Hale ordered, for a recon Marine whose boots you were not worthy to shine. The three snapped to attention. Tom sighed softly, uncomfortable with the attention. Captain, he said quietly, there's no need for that. There is, Hale replied firmly. With respect, men like you are the reason Marines like us get home. Tom looked away again, eyes distant. Most of my men didn't come home. The story no one knew. Hale sat beside him. Sir, if you don't mind, may I ask what happened? Tom closed his eyes for a moment, and something inside him began to shift. Something that had been locked away for decades. He looked at the young Marines, eager, respectful, hopeful. He saw himself in them. He saw the faces of the brothers he had lost. And for the first time in almost 40 years, he spoke. Part 1. The Jungle. We were inserted deep behind enemy lines, Tom began, his voice low but steady. Recon Team Viper. 6 men. The best Marines I ever knew. The diner remained silent. Even the kitchen staff listened from behind the swinging doors. It was late. 79. Mission details are still classified. But what I can tell you is that we were tracking a high-value target. Dangerous, intelligent, and always one step ahead of us. We walked into an ambush. 3 men went down in the first 30 seconds. His hands trembled slightly. I dragged them behind cover myself. But they were gone. He swallowed. We fought for 21 hours. No air support, no reinforcements, no extraction. Denver whispered, my God. Tom continued. When our comms died, I knew we were on our own. I had 2 Marines left, Mendez and Crowley. Good men, brave men. They never stopped firing, never backed down. His voice broke ever so slightly. They saved my life. Hale leaned forward. What happened to them? Tom stared down at his coffee. They both died protecting our flank. Bought me enough time to finish the mission. The diner remained utterly still. Tom's voice softened to a whisper. When you ask me my call sign, understand something. Iron Viper wasn't who I was. He looked up, and tears glimmered in the corners of his eyes. It was who we were. All of us. Part 2. The weight of survival. Hale cleared his throat, fighting his own emotion. Sir, you carried all that alone. Tom nodded. For decades. He explained how he drifted between jobs, unable to sleep, unable to talk, unable to feel connected to a world that had no idea what he had survived. I wasn't a hero, Tom said. I was a survivor, and sometimes, surviving is harder than dying. Every Marine in the diner felt that sentence hit like a punch to the chest. Denver whispered, Sir, I'm sorry for joking earlier. Tom reached out, patting the young Marine's arm. No harm done, son. Just remember something. You never know the battles a quiet man carries. A town comes together. What happened next became a moment Cedar Ridge would talk about for generations. Captain Hale stood. Marines, he commanded loudly. Form up. Every active duty Marine in the diner lined up in perfect formation. Tom looked confused. What are you doing? Hale took a deep breath. Honoring you, sir." He raised his hand in a sharp, flawless salute. Every Marine followed. The old veteran stared at them, eyes wide, breath shaking, as decades of silence finally broke inside him. For the first time since 79, he allowed himself to feel seen. To feel remembered. To feel like he still belonged. A single tear slid down his cheek. Rosie wiped her eyes behind the counter. Denver sniffled loudly. A sense of reverence filled the room. And then Hale spoke. "Mr. Keller, on behalf of the United States Marine Corps, welcome home." Tom's shoulders trembled, and he whispered, "Thank you, Captain." A new beginning. Over the next weeks, everything in Tom's life changed. He wasn't alone anymore. The young Marines visited every weekend, inviting him to the base, asking for advice, listening to his stories. They fixed his old truck, repaired his porch steps, and brought him groceries. For the first time in 40 years, Tom laughed again. A real laugh. He attended a Marine Corps birthday ball for the first time since leaving service. When he walked in, dress shirt pressed, medals newly polished, the entire hall fell silent, and then erupted into applause. Iron Viper was no longer a ghost. He was a living legend. He was family. The final letter. Months later, Captain Hale found an envelope slipped under the door of the diner. Rosie brought it to him immediately. Inside was a handwritten note. "Captain Hale, thank you for giving an old Marine a home again. Thank you for remembering men the world forgot. I'm not afraid anymore. Semper Fi. Tom Keller." There was also a Recon patch. Weathered, torn, stained with age. The patch of Recon Team Viper. Hale held it gently, chairs falling silently. Tom passed away peacefully in his sleep that night. No pain, no fear, just rest. His funeral was the largest Cedar Ridge had ever seen. Marines came from across the country. Helicopters flew overhead, flags rose, bugles sounded, and Captain Hale placed the Recon patch on Tom's casket. "Rest easy, Iron Viper," he whispered. "We'll take it from here." And that, my friends, is the story. A story of sacrifice. A story of brotherhood. A story of a Marine whose courage shaped the shadows of history, until the day the world finally saw him again. If this story moved you, if it touched your heart, if it reminded you of the bravery of our veterans, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Veterans Legacy, honoring those who served, and those who still bear the memories of battles fought long ago. Semper Fi.